Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Career and Technical Education Podcast. I'm Brandon Grace.
And I'm Randall Huff.
And today we are here with Dr. Chris West from Lubbock High School ESports and programming and video game design and all the above and world traveler. And thanks for being here with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into education.
Sure, yeah. I actually got into education by mistake, really. I went to the university in 1998 to do game design and programming. Well, I wanted to enter game design, but they didn't really have that at that point. So they had programming, and I was going to do with a math, double major with math, and then I was going to do a minor in art to kind of have the full package.
Right.
But then the .com crash happened. So I was like, well, I'm looking at the newspaper and all these programmers and people in tech are just losing their job left and right. And I said, well, I really can't afford to not have a job and lay on my mom's couch. I come from a pretty poor family, so I knew that I could have a job teaching anywhere. So I liked that, and seemed to fit. It worked out well.
Awesome. And so how did you, whenever you originally weren't in Texas, whenever you got this job, where were you at before you got here?
Sure. Well, actually, I was in Texas right before I got this job. I had originally, for about 8 years, I was in the Middle East working in Abu Dhabi. I worked for the Abu Dhabi Education Council and then for the Ministry of Education when they kind of merged. I was an education advisor and then an AQIO, which is Academic Quality Improvement Officer. I helped write their curriculum for their technology program over there, the IT and programming curriculum that they had, and digital media. My wife was pregnant, and she said, well, it's time to go back. So I sent her back a little early, and then I ended up joining her, and I had a job at Grand Prairie for a year until my wife finished her degree. She worked for Wells Fargo corporate for about 10 years, and decided that maybe this whole having the summer where you can spend time with your kids is not a bad deal. And
Right.
So she went back and finished her degree in art, so art education. And I try to tell her, there's only like one art teacher on a campus, and they have like two principals. And a lot of these, you might have a hard time finding a job. And well, Lubbock was the only one hiring at that point, and they snatched her up, and so here we are. And I just kind of looked into the video game design job, and it seemed to work out for everybody.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. And you came on right as Marcy came on as a CTE coordinator, so it worked out perfect. It was just kind of everything fell into place.
Yeah, it was good.
ESports, it's innovative.
Oh yes.
And it's kind of taking the education and especially K through 12 education within the past 4 or 5 years by storm. All these different companies are coming out and saying, hey, use our esports programs. But we're having to come up with ways to make it educational and make it to where it's an actual legit thing for schools to do, like football or basketball. How is in the esports scene across the state and across the nation, how is that evolving to become legitimized?
Sure.
Before you answer that, can I even ask for just a little background information?
Yes.
As you're answering that, explain really what the programs are. Of course, I mean, I have to assume that 99% of the people that are out there listening across the country, by the way, know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. However, you got this one old carpenter, and I'm like, what the heck is this?
So let me start off with what esports is. Esports is competitive gaming, just like football. You have people who are outside playing touch football using similar rules, and then you have people in stadiums with thousands of viewers, and they're playing with, maybe pads, but they're playing the same game. It's the same thing is happening with video games. You have people who are casual players, and then you have people who are very serious and very good at what they're doing, and they get paid to do it. And they enter competitions like you have NFL where you have like a bracket and they play and then have playoffs. It's very similar for esports. We play a bunch of teams in the regular season and we have a playoff, and it works just similar to March Madness or any other traditional sport. As far as like esports in the academic setting, well, I would say in 2020, there was maybe 2022 in that range, there was only a few universities actually offering it. I actually got my doctorate in education, but with a research focus in esports, and especially in the K through 12 environment.
Oh, wow.
So I did a lot of research on just the general atmosphere of what esports and education look like. Over the last few years, it's grown exponentially. A lot of universities are adding it. As far as what they cover, it's not really the competitive side of it so much. It's more the business side. So you'll find some universities are working for more like a sports management degree, but with a focus in esports. Because the business of esports functions a little differently than traditional sports. It's more of a side hustle, and you don't really have groups that are entrenched. Like the Dallas Cowboys have been there for years. They're like an institution. Sometimes teams, they'll spring up one year and they'll just disappear the next year. And so it's this kind of nature of the non-static nature of esports. It kind of changes and adapts and flows.
It's young.
Oh yeah, it's very young.
Yeah.
And then there's other universities that are focusing on like player performance, just like that they would do for athletes. Athlete player performance. They have universities that are focusing more on trying to perfect the performance of gaming or improvement of gaming or athletes. And as far as what we're looking at to add in high schools, we're probably adding more of the business side of it. I know California, they have a group out of the University of Southern California. No, not UCLA. It's UC Irvine. Yeah, or UC Irvine.
Yeah, that's right. Because they did that. Yeah, you're right. Continue.
Yeah. A lot of people out of UC Irvine. They I want to say it was directly out of them. And NASEF, the group that was kind of out of California, they developed a lot of classes that were esports focused, like math and things. So it heavily leaned toward integration of gaming into the curriculum. But that's kind of rare. Most of what we're seeing now is kind of like adapting what they're doing in the university, more of a business perspective that's kind of skewed toward esports.
So are we looking at like business, like marketing and making business plans and
event management?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah. I didn't think about that because whenever you do an esports like tournament, it's usually a big event, and so you have to be able to have people that can do event management, know how to keep the books, how to promote it, how to market, how to make posters, and so that's pretty cool. That's kind of it makes sense. It fits, and I mean then you can even start adding AV into it and doing videos and commercials, and then also doing shoutcasting and. It's a lot.
Well, I was part of a small group that actually developed the TEEX for Texas for what we were doing. Actually, I finagled Lubbock ISD to let me teach a sort of local course here a couple of years back, and they pretty much took what I was doing and adapted it at the state level. We made some adjustments, wording and placement, a few things here and there. But really what we focused on is sort of we just stole a lot of TEEX from different areas, from AV, from business. I mean, you're just saying, why recreate it? The goal was, the gentleman who helped us kind of organize this to submit this to the state, he made it very clear that they would not approve something that is basically already existing. And so what we had to do is establish that what we were doing was a unique combination of kind of what was already out there. And so a lot of what we did was we were kind of pulling what was already in existence, and we weren't trying to recreate the wheel. We were just trying to adapt it for our needs. So it does include like streaming. It does include looking at business side of things. It does look like strategists. I mean, that's a job in a lot of places. Like professional esports teams have strategists, especially like League of Legends and things like looking at different compositions and different comps of the heroes and how they go about attacking certain things. And they have coaching staff just like anyone else. You have marketing people. The hustle economy or the gig economy, I guess, is really big in esports because they have a lot of streaming with Twitch. That's real big. And so I know that some of the esports teams are hiring famous Twitch people who just, they made a career out of like playing a sport. Well, they brought them on, and they're playing that esports game and pitching their esports team.
Yeah.
So I think Musty was doing Cloud9. I want to say no, that's not Cloud9. It was NRG. Musty he's a famous Twitch streamer, and and NRG was a group, a professional team that had esports, Rocket League. Sorry,
Rocket League.
Yeah, it was a Rocket League team and Squishy Muffins and all that. I know as I'm saying this, you're like, what?
Squishy Muffins.
Yeah.
I've never met a Squishy Muffin before, but
but those are their gamer tags.
Yeah.
And, so that's one thing in esports that's quite different than traditional sports, is people are known by their gamer tags. And so it allows for that kind of marketing allows a lot of these esports athletes to make a little money on the side, because they'll do their own streams and engage with their audience, build an audience on like YouTube, Twitch, and then also selling merchandise with their names on it, little logos. So they sell team merchandise and their own merchandise, just like you would a jersey for a football player. So
it's like I've been to the esports arena in Dallas. I mean, you've been there multiple times also, and it's the Fuel.
Yes.
Yeah, the Fuel, the Dallas Fuel, and you go in there. They have like a whole sports shop. Like whenever you go to say the Mavericks Arena, was American Airlines Center, you can go in and buy their merch and their all the stuff, and buy the jerseys, and then you can go into this one and buy the esports players' jerseys. It's really kind of it's a whole thing. It's a whole section of sports that's out there that people really just kind of overlook. Oh, they're just playing video games, but there's a lot that goes into it.
Speaking of just playing video games, does that become an obstacle? I mean, especially in education, are folks saying, well, there's really no value to that, they're just sitting around playing video games? Or is the message getting out there more? I can only imagine when it started, that's probably what it seemed like. But I'm just hearing some amazing things, so I'm wondering if that's been an obstacle for you guys.
Well, I'm an actual researcher. I do actual academic research, and I do ask questions like this all the time. And I'm in the middle of a research project where I'm interviewing esports coaches from around the country and trying to garner some more of this information, whether they are having issues from like their administration or their parents or the local community. Because one thing is we at Lubbock ISD, we don't play mature games. Some school districts may, and again, like Rainbow Six Siege we play Overwatch, which is very cartoony graphics, but Rainbow Six is pretty much a similar game, but it has realistic graphics. So it's not because of blood. It's rated mature because of the graphics. And so, I mean, one can make the argument to people, but we've made a decision of, well, if it's M, we don't have that argument. We don't want to have any people from the community think we're doing something wrong with the students. We stick with T for teen or lower, and we respect that. I don't know if I haven't heard anyone having major issues from community members or from school districts or the higher ups. I mean, I know that they come in and they have some questions, but typically when they see, hey, these other groups over here are doing it, it must be okay because these guys are doing it. Sure. So I think it's becoming more and more socially acceptable. Yes, it can have problems. Internet gaming disorder is a real thing. People can become addicted to games. But there was actually a research article I read years ago where it talked about how a professional athlete, like a football player, when he's done with playing football, he goes home and he doesn't do football. He might watch games, he may do fantasy football or something like that, but he's not going in engaging in the same act.
There's no field in the living room.
Yeah, right. And so, but a professional like Rocket League player might play 8 hours with his team that day practicing, then go home and play another 5 hours for fun at night. Oh, wow. And so it's like, where does the job and the recreation, that line is hard. And that's where you see burnout happening. And we don't have the numbers to support, at least I haven't seen it. But the overall professional span of a professional esports player is about the same as a professional football or basketball player. They kind of top out around mid-20s. Oh, wow. And you wouldn't think that's what, I mean, yeah, you do have a little bit decline in the reaction speeds, but you shouldn't see that much. Right. I think a lot of it has to do with when you're doing something for 10, 12 hours a day, it just burns your mind out and you kind of just can't do it anymore, And I think at some professional teams, I've read this, that they're going in and putting strict rules on how much time people are playing and forcing them
How
to
many
engage.
pitches per inning?
Right.
Yeah, it's very much, you don't want to wear
much the
your
same.
pitcher out. You don't want to wear your football players out. They don't play in games that they think they can win. They'll pull those guys out if they're ahead enough. Same thing here. They just want to make sure they.
What does an esports team look like? I mean, like, do you have
Sure.
a linebacker and a quarterback and all those kind of things, or is it just 4 guys playing a game?
Well, it really depends on the actual esports title you're playing. Now, I can make the argument that any video game can be an esport, and like one of the arguments I have was with other people like me. Where do you draw the line? And some people, like speed running, like you're trying to complete a game as fast as you possibly can. I know that they, or like Tetris, where they're getting the highest possible score. That they broke that not too long ago. They're trying to determine where that is, but there's certain games that are specifically made for esports. Like I don't consider speed running an esport. It's nice, but some people would disagree with me. There's no unified definition of esports and kind of where they draw the line. But if we're just talking about the games that are really specifically designed for esports, like Rocket League fits it really well, Overwatch, League of Legends, Valorant, all these things are really geared toward that. There's not a lot of story. It's more about repetition and proving your ability over time.
I see.
Winning over time. The team is really dependent on how many players are playing, but most people like my rule for when I advise other people, have like a team and a half. So if there's Rocket League, there's 3 players that play at any one point in time. I try to tell them to have at least 5 people because people get sick. People can't be eligible because we do have no pass, no play.
It never happens.
Oh yeah. So we things happen. Mom schedules them a haircut. And you're like, why'd you do this? But mom has got control over everything. Right. So it really depends on the game itself and what it looks like. But like in my research, I always talk about the esports team and I talk about squads because the nomenclature that's with esports is really not defined either. I like to use the word squad for a small a sub team that's actually working with or that's for a specific esports title, whereas other places may not use that nomenclature. But since it's so new, even the language that we use is not standardized as much as you would find in more established sports.
It is really cool to see that coming up through Lubbock ISD to have experts like you, because like you said, it is so new and it's growing. And the things that you guys are doing here in Lubbock ISD are actually going to be setting standards and across the nation, not just here, right, but across the nation. You're kind of writing the book, which is super cool.
Well, and the good thing about it is like I'm on the board for the Electronic Gaming Federation. They do college esports and high school esports, and they do like a middle school league too. I work for TexF, which is the state league. I work heavily with them. I do, matter of fact, Vanta, which is another big league that does things in multiple states. They're actually paying for helping me pay for some of my research. Oh, wow. They're not giving me money. They're paying for it to be copyrighted and published. Sure. It just costs money because a lot of the data I'm giving to them for free. ISEA, which is TexF is a part of its Interstate Esports Association, is a collection of like state leagues that are kind of banded together to help standardize things. It's kind of a loose confederation, I guess, of groups because there's no real standardized format. Like it's almost like an ISD or how school districts are run in Texas. In Kansas, they may have a different format where they play different esports titles in the fall and in the spring, or maybe like in Garden State, New Jersey, they might have 3 seasons. They have like a mini season in the wintertime that kind of goes in December and January, where they're testing out different esports titles, and they may have major ones in the fall and the spring. Or in Texas, we have just 2 big ones that happen, and we have a state championship that comes out. So it's maturing quite a bit. I know that ISCA, we're hoping to form a more formal relationship with Skills USA to help run their or participate in running their esports competitions that we're hoping to bring about at the national level. So we are making efforts to establish ourselves with, or become part of more established organizations and partnerships that exist out there too.
Cool. Right. And so like whenever that was another thing I was going to bring up is that, it's matured enough that now CTSOs are bringing it on board, doing the esports, and Texas I think it's just Texas that's kind of piloting it for the nation right now, because they had talked about it at the national level, but they hadn't done anything with it. But we already had a lot of people that were interested in wanting to do it, so they decided to run it in the state. And Chris's, they were like, "So how do we do this?" Because we didn't have any direction from nationals. So I was like, "Well, let's call Chris," and and they were like, "Okay." So we called Chris up, and he straight up just. They went through everything with them with Amy, and it's going to be something that'll go across the nation at some point in some form or fashion, based off of Chris's research and from and then just from what if anything good or bad happens here. We're playing Rocket League, right?
Yeah, Rocket League.
Yeah, and but it's not just playing a game.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. Yeah. We've essentially separated out the event into two separate competition. Well, it's one competition, but two separate parts. The first part is an actual tournament. So if you win the tournament, you get 500 points. If you get second, 400. It's kind of, it goes down, I think, all the way to 200. I don't think they do fifth or sixth place. But so that's how you possibly earn half your 1,000 points for your overall score. The other half is an interview process where you have to submit work, where part of it is like you have to say, okay, the idea is that esports teams are kind of new, and so part of the competition is designing a logo for your team or planning out different things for your team. For us, we've been established for this is my 5th year that we've been doing this. So I told my team that we're going to design an esports program for OL Slayton. Nice. And that we're going to run it for OL Slayton, be their coaches. So we went in and designed a logo. We designed, I think they have to do that. They have to do a business plan. They talked about how much money things are going to cost and who's going to fund it. We had to do a letter for donations that we would give to people, saying what kind of money we want and how much we want and what is it going for that you would use for any other institution.
Just to clarify for anybody listening, OL Slayton's actually one of our middle schools.
Yes.
And so basically your high school team would be partnering with a middle school, so there's even a mentorship aspect there too. So that's really cool.
But that's what we thought. We felt that instead of just designing something that we already have, let's go out there and find something there is a gap that we might be able to do that. And we sat around and said, well, which middle school we're going to pick? And they're like, okay, let's do that one. You have to. So we had the business plan. You have to do advertisements for your team. Like, hey, join us here. We have to do an event plan because we actually had to design our own entire tournament. Which we kind of built ours on what we were doing at the ATC in the past.
Yeah, on the Hub City Showdown?
Yeah, we did that. We're doing the Hub City Middle School Showdown, so we didn't use the same logo or anything.
Yeah, right.
It was just kind of why recreate the wheel when you can kind of adapt it. And
right.
That's a lot of what we're doing is, especially in esports, is when you don't see them trying to start something up from the ground up. You're just adapting kind of what's there. And especially when you're doing tournaments and things, most of these things are already established. We're just kind of adapting it to our needs and the environments, especially when you go to an actual tournament. It's what you would see for any other sort of event. It's just got computers there and a big screen where people can watch. So it was pretty fun. Well, let me finish that point. So I'm kind of bird walking here. I'm sorry. Then you have to do the event plan. Then you have to do troubleshooting plan. So it's a technology side of it. So essentially what we did, that's how you get your other 500 points. So the person will interview you and ask you questions about what you've decided. So they're going to give you points based upon how well you answer their questions and how appropriate it is and the depth of the work you've done. But yeah, that's kind of how you get your other 500, and your overall score out of 1,000 determines who wins.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So Yeah, and it's evolving into what it's going to become, which is really cool. And we're creating the rules and the regulations, and it's all starting, within the state of Texas, and it's going to propagate to what it is. One last question before we kind of wrap this up. So we have there's lots of schools out there that are probably wondering, how do I start this? How do you actually build an esports program, not necessarily a program, but even a class to legitimize it? And so within Lubbock High, y'all were the first ones to kind of pilot it within the district. How did you come up with the plan, and how do you implement it within your classroom?
Well, I'll give you two answers here. One for how to start a team, and one how to start a class. Okay. Starting a team, and going back to my research, the research project I'm doing now these are the questions we're asking, like looking at what the general experiences are across the spectrum, more of a phenomenological study. We found that most people have similar struggles, but I'm trying to prove it, so I'm create a document where people say, here, I can hand it to you and say, this is what you should expect when you start a program. But what happens is, first thing you should do is obviously get permissions. Then I would look out in different leagues and things and figure out what games or game titles you have to offer, because it doesn't do you any good to say, hey, we're going to play this game if no one's competing in it. It's fun, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. Then once you do that, I would do like a little survey to garner interest, and then start small. What happens is people they have an interest meeting and 100 people show up, and they're like, whoa, man, this is going to be great. I'm going to have all these teams and all that. If you have 100 people show up, you'll be lucky at the end of the year if you have 20 left over.
Yeah.
The attrition rate is extraordinarily high, and it can be very demoralizing if you don't expect it. And that's one of the things that my research has been seeing is, everybody's like, my retention's hard. Because you need to look for competitors, not gamers. Gamers play for fun. Competitors play to win, and they play for purpose. And so a lot of competitors show up. A lot of gamers show up. But you might only have a few people who are real serious about it, just like anything else. People want to go play football, but when they realize, I got to actually work at it, and it's hot and sweaty, maybe not so much. Same thing here. And I always tell people, start off with one or two teams. Don't try to go big. And even if you have like 15 people for Rocket League, one or two teams. That's more than enough. And then you cycle people in and out. Build proficiency. Then you'll determine who your leaders are. And the people who are going to be your starters will eventually make their way up. And you'll eventually notice who they are. The people who are good communicators. They're good collaborators. They're smart. They're not toxic. They don't yell at their other teammates when they make mistakes. Just like any other good athlete, it's good sportsmanship. It's really what you're trying to develop that.
Yeah.
And then as you go on, add more and kind of slowly build your way there. I've seen teams that collapse completely because went way big and it fell apart, and the administration was like, "What's going on?" And they kind of lose faith in it, and the teacher loses faith. And honestly, if you don't have the right person in the position, it's not going to be successful. You've got to have, just like you need to have the right coach, coaching football, coaching basketball to get those students motivated. Same thing with esports. It's no different. If you don't have the right person, you won't be as successful or have any success. I hope that made sense.
You did.
Yeah. As far as going for curriculum side of it, I could pitch tons of different places that have curriculum. There's game plan. There's High School Esports League. I know TexF is going to start offering our own for the state of Texas. Typically, what I would do is make a case to your local, like your school district, and say that, hey, this is real. I want to maybe offer a local course or something like that. Not looking to push anything major like CTE wise yet. See if they're willing to at least accept it for like local credit. If I can get credit for being an assistant at the counseling office, I can probably get credit for doing something else. start off small. Just go out there and research and see what's there. You don't feel like you have to start from the ground up yourself. There's a lot of great resources out there. Now, there's a lot of them that cost a lot of money because just like anything, it's new, and people are trying to snatch up as much money as they can. There's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to be leery of the quality of what you're getting and the appropriateness. So if you're focusing more on the athletic side of esports, then there's the curriculum that's a lot better for you. If you want to focus more on like the academic side of it, like the business side, like talking about contracts, a contract is really important in esports because if you get a bad contract, you can lose a lot of money.
Right.
I know there was one esports player a few years ago who was arguing that he was not getting paid as a streamer because in his contract he was supposed to be giving part of his streaming income to the team. And he was throwing a fit. Well, you signed the contract. Did you not read it? Right. So these are things that you need to look into. But yeah, there's things out there. I think what you need to do primarily before you do any of this, find a Discord group. I know there's esports.edu. Look for your state's local esports league and join them. Ask questions. If they're educators, they will bend over backward to help you because I'll call people on the phone, answer any questions they have. I can arrange to send people there, but I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because I love this. There's other people out there that will help you all day long, but it's for a price. So you just have to be careful.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Awesome.
I would say like I've learned a ton as far as esports. I always struggled and just my limited knowledge understanding the pathway. And so you guys have really shared a lot about, hey, it's not just sitting down and playing a video game. And, it's easy when you look at an auto mechanic or a plumber, you know where they're going, right? You know what the career field is. There are so many career fields that these guys could go into. Yeah. And even more importantly, we've talked about this huge emphasis on employability skills. And that, as you said, working with a team, having a great attitude, not jumping on your teammates, all of those things, teaching them to be collaborative. Man, I think it's some stat like 78% of employers that they just want somebody that can be collaborative. Yeah. So that's huge. And I think being able to sell that, especially to the folks that maybe, as like you said, somebody's out there looking to start something, just something to say, look, it's not just getting together and playing a game. Like, here's where these kids can go, and this is how it can benefit our students, and because that's what we're all here for.
Absolutely. I know, like, I've talked to several college teams, and I'll tell you this. They would rather have somebody who's coachable, somebody who listens, somebody who's willing to work and put effort in, than somebody who's just really, really good at the game. Because just because you're good doesn't mean you can fit in with a team.
What's interesting about that is we've heard that from multiple people about jobs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like we can teach you the skill, we can't teach you how to be employable, and that's been that's I mean, in anything we do, that's a key thing, and that we keep hearing that over and over again. Teach those employability skills, those essential or soft skills. And that's what's going to be most beneficial to these kids. And we need to teach content too, but you got to teach them how to be employees.
Well, if you look at pros, even the pro athletes, there's those guys who get the big heads and they think that they're, the team can't win without me. You're replaceable, man. And the same thing on these pro esports teams. There's if you go looking, you'll find news articles where somebody just flips out on teammates and they send them packing because there's always those clauses in your contracts. Again, back to the contracts. It is a job to some degree. Competing is a job, but you can't be not a team player. That's one of the biggest things with esports. Is you have to learn to be a team player. You have to learn how to perform and adapt. So it's all the things that people want for a job. It really is. And if you can, just like they always say, people who join football teams or join the military, all these things, it's teaching them to be flexible and teaching them to adapt. And that's really good for people who are trying to enter the workforce to have these skills. Because
awesome.
If you can work with a group of people you've never met to, play a game at a really high level and communicate, you see all the communication activities they do for team building where somebody's describing something to someone else. Well, that's what you're doing in esports is you're describing something to someone else and they can't see what you're doing half the time.
Right.
Because they're all halfway across the map doing something else.
Right.
Dr. West, has been great. If somebody's trying to get started in esports, is there a way that they can contact you?
Sure.
Reach out for advice or guidance?
I'm chris.west, chris.west at lubbockisd.org or chris at texef, texsef.org. I've got a few other organizational emails, but those are probably the easiest two to remember. But yeah, if you want to get into esports, I promise you I can connect you with somebody who can help you. There's people out there. There's a huge network.
Awesome.
Dr. West, thank you so much for giving your time tonight. And we just appreciate hanging out with you and appreciate what you're doing for our kids.
Yeah, it's great to hear all the updates on everything that's going on. And I thank y'all for listening to us. And we appreciate y'all continually watching us and listening to us over the last couple months now. But if y'all need anything, reach out to Chris or one of us, and we can get you in contact with somebody. And we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You can watch and listen to all episodes of the CTE Podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Podcast, and LubbockISDTV.com.